Hi, and welcome back to another edition of the Blue Honor Vlog. I believe this is video number 11. Since it's Friday, this is going to be focused on the Trailokya Trilogy. It's one of the Trailokya Friday features. And I'm going to read a passage to you from The Shadow Soul, which you can read on Wattpad for free, or you can download the ebook for $2.99 on Amazon. You can also get the paperback at Amazon. I believe it is $19.99. It might be on sale right now. I'm not really sure. I'd have to run real quick to my laptop and check that out, the price. But usually the highest price is $19.99 US. That is the first in the series, so if you're interested in the Trailokya Trilogy, it's a good time to start. And Wattpad also features the companion book, which explains a lot of the different things, gives you more details as you wait, as the books come through. I'm getting over a cold, so excuse me if I cough suddenly in the middle of this. I haven't talked very much in the Trailokya features about the Jahannamites, and those are the Duda who have been cast out of Zion and imprisoned on the Jahannam world. And they're basically the bad guys. And it's far more complicated than that, as anything should be. Of course, you know, they came up against the king. They felt that they should have their say and be able to do what they wanted, free will-wise. And when they attempted to do that, part of that was attacking souls and punishing them, raping them, all sorts of terrible things. It was kind of like a war, taking advantage of them, teaching them bad things, and just really going against the order. And that rotted their Atman and put them in Jahannam. So really, their actions are what put them there, and the king was just protecting his people in the end. So it probably is a little more black and white, but the characters, you can see that they're not quite sociopaths. They do have a certain amount of feelings, and maybe those are very selfish, narcissist feelings. But they're there, and they want things, and they're rather angry. Anger is an emotion. So they're angry, they feel betrayed, all sorts of things like that. The main Jahannamite is the Baron Morgentus, and you'll meet him fairly early on in the book because he is a push to a lot of the action. He causes a lot of the things to happen. He is not the source, however, so you have to pay attention. Chapter 3. Pacing the bank of a platinum river, a man crossly muttered to himself from a pair of pale, thin lips. He wore black from head to foot, with what appeared to be a leather cape draping down his back and clasped over his clavicle like the knuckles of two fingers. His pale skin was the hue of a fresh cadaver, and his eyes pallid azure. His jet hair, perfectly coiffed, framed a mature yet ageless face, both handsome and cruel, much like his appearance, his presence in the strange land, which was so imposing and desolate, seemed contradictory in the sense that it did not seem a habitable place. The atmosphere around him was heavy and warm, carrying the smell of burning decay and gusty winds. A low ceiling of purple clouds eclipsed the rock barrier that sealed him inside Jahannam. But the radiance of early evening reached through the distance from some indiscernible source. The flat plain pushed forward toward a sandstorm cloud. Red dust and scattered rock wended east and west into a bleak horizon, black to the east and fire to the west. Lightning flashed above and behind. The only structure were a worn wood dock jutting into the water and a boulder shack upon which rested a pointed scrap wood roof. A Gothic lantern swung from one of the brittle piers. The silver river this man wandered marked the border of the wasteland chill, and as far as his kind could go without being harassed by light walkers. The man toed the water lapping the shore. It foamed angrily against his boot. He rubbed his palms together and then scanned the far bank. A mist shrouded the other side from view, and the land beyond. The asphodel fields was wreathed in black shadow. Beyond that lay the Avernus, a barrier that kept out the light and the prying eyes of King Arne, he who cast the race into the shadows, a place that would eat their very being. Poking from the shadows was the sterling head of a weeping giant, coined the old man by some. It was the guardian Yahweh, ever watchful over the dark dominion. The old seraph had encased himself inside of the statue, which was submerged to its elbows in a wide body of water. The rest of the seraph's prison lay choked in the spray of some liquid, pouring from the hand-covered eyes. The effect elongated the statue's hair and robes. He recalled an era when the tears trickled and the rivers threatened to dry up. Many starved for the liquid with suffering and thus life to Jahannam. Now great suffering poured in from Samsar, thanks to the many gates they'd forged to encourage the flow. Yahweh never fought them. Instead, his tears fed the acrid lands and broad swollen rivers in the world. The Danava would not starve again with such abundance pouring in from their gatekeeper. More than likely, the seraph's Atman had spent its last centuries ago, and he was a useless lump sealed inside. That or Yahweh had taken sides with Jahannam. Whatever the man upon the shore waited to see remained hidden from him in the Kayala barrier across the water. He grew impatient for the first signs of his expected delivery. The water lapped the shore more vigorously, suggesting the moment had at last come. He stopped muttering to himself and watched the ripples. Something indeed moved on the water. "Lethe, bring me news," he said. A ghostly, high-bowed skiff leapt from the Kayala. The gleaming steam of the ominous vessel branched from the water like the elegant scroll of a violin. A crust of mineral circled the sides at the waterline. When the vessel drew closer, the structure was revealed to be composed of the twined bodies of souls in varying states of death. Their putrefying skins were dry and stretched tight on their bones despite the water. The forms writhed to break free, but were lost in the crippling stupor that enslaved them. The stem was also a corpse lashed into a gruesome figurehead, no doubt with an equally gruesome history. The ship's captain, Karen, was an astute collector of souls. The ship came to rest at the dock, securing itself by automated rope moorings. Only 2 passengers stood on the low deck. Karen, who guided the vessel, perched on the stunted aft deck, making 3. The dark-haired man lifted his chin, pursed his lips. He scanned the boat's length again, striding along the dock. He had expected at least 1 other passenger. His fists worked as he imagined throttling his soldiers for their failure. "Lord Morgentus," the broader of the 2 men said, inclining his bald head. Morgentus folded his hands and waited. The passenger who had spoken to him hesitated, then crossed his bare arms over his great chest and frowned. He was a fallen El named Grag, whose form resembled a gigantic man from the age of barbarians. He had been an insidious creature, enjoying the feel of blood on his hands as much as subduing young females who made the mistake of crossing his path. His talent suited the sort of work Morgentus needed done, and helped him escape the chasm of torment long enough to promote him to the rank of knight. Such work as Grag's deserved to be rewarded a bit, but doing so made him lazy. The second soldier was Segrius, a chief among his serpent kind. He hailed from the fallen Dragos, easily led to darkness by his morbid obsessions. Serpents were similar to bogans, but had no recognizable faces. They just had a flat skull with sharp-toothed mouths and slits for a nose. Their satpha was covered in greasy skin, the color of swamp mud. They were aptly named mud-eaters. They had an uncanny awareness of their surroundings, despite their blindness. Grag, Segrius. "Where is Mort?" Morgentus nodded to each. Grag thought a moment, as if he were in fact capable of thought. Beside him, the reedy Segrius flexed his fists, clicking the long claws of his demented fingers. He clattered his stained teeth together and hissed, Morgentus should have sent him alone for this job with a pair of his atron. He would not stand on the banks of the Lethe empty-handed. The bogan was the worst choice he could have made. He didn't survive the mission, Greg finally answered in a stunted tongue. He noted Morgentus's dismay and rattled out, "The Red Duda slew him." Mile. Morgentus breathed the name, both delighted and irritated. As Morgentus considered the forms making up the boat, he reflected on the information. He didn't think taking the precious Gamiel would have whipped up the red Arella so powerfully. A grin surfaced on his face, and he ran his hand over the brow of a young human female who formed part of the vessel. She rolled her face away as if overcome with loathing, then her skin softened to the same hue as his, changed from the red-black of her rotting flesh. She felt frozen to his burning hands, not quite fallen and not a gray. She'll kill more of her ranks so long as she looks for the guardian and watches the mortal. Let him go before she brings more to search. Of course she will, because you're slovenly in your duties. Do you not have one good thing to tell me? Must I do this myself like I had to when he threatened to steal her from me? Morgentus said, distracted by the woman. Placing his morbid black stare on his millions, Morgentus emphasized his meaning. Greg stared down, his crooked nose, quite sure any response would be unwelcome. And what is it that I should tell Prince Belial? Morgentus pressed when the beasts kept quiet. We let a guardian go because my men were afraid of a little Arella. The threat of Belial's reprisal reminded Greg of his place, which was nowhere unless his baron ordered one. Karen chuckled in delight, but didn't dare to otherwise involve himself. As the second prince of the waterways and weakest of their atron, he held a precarious position. Morgentus's lips curled at the corners while he ran his gloved hand over the face of the woman. Karen would not raise a finger to prevent him from taking the burning soul. On the precipice of becoming Jiangshi, she retained her human qualities and had the right measurements. Her aspect paled in comparison to the one who owned his affections. Despite his touch rousing her flesh to living form, a tint of color and fullness appeared that would not change. She wouldn't be enough, but she would tide him over. Her eyes opened, and they were hazy, sightless orbs. Careful not to rend the restored flesh, he drew her from the other corpses that occupied the ferryman's boat. I've grown tired of waiting, but not all is lost. I have a new toy to keep me occupied until you find what I asked for. Perhaps she can ease your worry about the old Angle by eating his opman, since you cannot bring yourselves to touch him. Morgentus said, taking a long look at the treasure he'd found. Karen was miserable that he'd stolen the girl, but he dared not move to challenge the Baron. He feared reprisal from the Agarite counterpart and the loss of all his souls. It was better to seek another girl from the sea to fill the vacancy. There were always more. So that's an introduction to Morgentus and some of the other Danava, the Jahannamites. They have a couple names. Danava is what a Duda becomes when they fall. And Jahannam is the place in which they live, so that would be like Earth. Jahannam is like their planet. And there's different nations within that structure. It's not quite like a planet. It doesn't have the same physics because it's a different dimension. I would picture like a flat Earth sort of place, and it's between things. So you have a ceiling of rock, and you have the ground as well. So it's sealed all the way around. There's no real sky. But something does cast light somehow, so whatever that is. All right, until next time, remember, subscribe below. Go to Wattpad to read the full book, or purchase it on Amazon.com. It's the Trailokya Trilogy, The Shadow Soul. Thank you.